and all those nutrients and all those good sugars and humuses, and that was the wrong word. Hello, my name is Jessica, and I am a senior agronomist here at Sound Agriculture, standing on the state line of Washington and Oregon. Today, for our Sound Advice, we are talking about what happens to nitrogen in the soil during the winter. We're talking about nitrogen throughout the winter and what happens to it in the soil today, because a lot of people right now are either thinking about applying nitrogen in the fall for their fall application, or they're taking soil samples to see what their nitrogen levels look like in their soil right now. So as you start going through these processes right now, keep the following in mind as you start thinking about what you're going to do with your nitrogen going into the fall. Going into winter, our soils get colder, our roots are usually taken out of the ground as our plants get harvested, and our microbes go into a period of relaxation and dormancy. When nitrogen is in the soil, there's three places that it mainly goes: either your roots, to your microbes, or to release into the environment, either through leaching, volatilization, or denitrification. In the wintertime, two of those three things are either gone or have slowed down. So we know that going into the wintertime, when we don't have roots in our soil, then our nitrogen isn't being taken up by our roots. If our microbes are slowing down, then that's less microbial activity that needs that nitrogen. And the last thing that's left is lost to the environment. There are three ways that nitrogen is lost to the environment. We have denitrification, volatilization, and leaching. Denitrification is a common thing that can happen during the winter time if you have compaction in your soil, and then you have a snowmelt, or you have heavy rain that occurs throughout the winter season going into the spring. It's a lot easier to have denitrification happening. Volatilization is when your ammonium turns into ammonia and leaves the soil. And this can happen if you have bare soils and moist soils. So that nitrogen that's left on closer to the surface of the soil will leave and go into the atmosphere. The last one is leaching. This is really common during the winter, after the winter, when you have that flush of snowmelt or flush of water that moves through your soils. Any nitrate that's in your soil will just leach and move down into the lower areas, where then your crops that will begin to grow in the spring won't have access to, and then unless you have some really great root activity, root growth. Two strategies that we can utilize to make sure that our nitrogen is kept in our soil throughout the winter, or that we better utilize our nitrogen throughout the season, is to make sure going into winter we either have roots in our soil. This means either through cover crops or just leaving litter from previous crops on your soil or in your soil. The second strategy we can utilize is keeping our microbes happy, and how we can do this is either one, by keeping those roots in the soil so that our microbes have access to root exudates, or it's by keeping their soil surface full of all those good nutrients that can eventually be broken down by our microbes. This is that litter from your crops, the trash that we keep on our fields. This eventually will be broken down by microbes, supplying them with all of the good sugars and fulvic acids and humic acids that they need and that our plants need to thrive throughout the season. So in conclusion, going into the winter time, we want to make sure nitrogen is not lost to the environment, and that means keeping our roots in the soil and our roots happy, which means also keeping our microbes happy.